China and Uzbekistan reached the final of the World Team Chess Championship in Jerusalem. The two countries defeated Spain and India respectively in the second match on Thursday, after both first matches had ended in a 2-2 tie. The final and the fight for third place begin on Friday, November 25th, starting at 5 a.m. PT 1400 hours set. After winning their sensational gold at the Chennai Olympiad, the young players from Uzbekistan are once again showing the chess world that they are the real deal, playing without GM Nadirbek Abjasadarov, but still coached by Ivan Sokolov, who gave an insightful interview with Chess.com after Chennai. The Uzbeks are playing for the top medals also in Jerusalem, facing India in the first of two matches in the semifinals. The score was 2-2, with draws on boards 1 and 2. GMSL Narayanan, beating GM Shamsuddin Vakadov on 3, and GM Jakhanjir Vakadov, winning against GM SP Sathuraman on 4. It was a tough loss for Sathuraman, who was much better out of the opening, as his opponent played a somewhat dodgy accelerated dragon. The second match was 1-2.5 to 1.5 by the Uzbeks. On the top board, GM Nadirbek Yakubov defeated GM Vidit Gujarati, but Narayanan won again. With a draw on board 4, Uzbekistan's second win, scored by Sindarov, was decisive. His game with Nil saw a pretty finish. China's tournament has been even more impressive, taking into account that they didn't even bring a single one of their top 8 rated players to Israel. While anger over the Chinese government's harsh COVID rules grows back home, most of the Chinese players in Jerusalem are playing with face masks. Their first match with Spain was a 2-2 as well, with wins for GM David Anton versus GM Zhu Xianju, and GM Li Dai versus GM Miguel Santos. In the second match, China won both of their white games, and drew their black games to set a 3-1 victory on the scoreboard. A crucial game was GM Bai Jinxi's win over GM Alexei Shirov. And yes, there was fire on the board from the start. The FIDE World Team Championship takes place November 19 to 26, 2022, in Jerusalem, Israel. The format is a round robin for teams with 5 rounds, followed by a knockout with the top 8 finishers. The time control is 45 minutes for the entire game, plus a 10-second increment starting on move 1. In the final of the World Team Chess Championship in Jerusalem, the surprise winner was the Chinese team, after winning both matches against Uzbekistan, the champions from the Chennai Chess Olympiad. In the battle for the bronze medals, at the time of writing, Spain and India headed into a blitz playoff after the first 2 matches were tied. But in the end, Spain pulled the longest straw and secured the win. In relative terms, the veteran but lower-rated Chinese team of unknowns demonstrated that just because none of their top 8 players took part, was not going to stop them from showing just how good they are in this format and taking down the young sensational Uzbeki gold winners from the Chennai Olympiad. Uzbekistan, by their presence in the finals, reaffirmed that they are, in fact, the real deal even when showing up without their usual top board, Nadirbek Abjasadarov. In the first match of the final, it quickly became evident that both teams had shown up willing to fight. The first game to end was on board 2 between GMs Jakhanjir Sindarov and Zhu Xianju. Next to finish was the draw between Javandar Vakadov and Li Dai, a not terribly interesting game in Nimzo Indian defense. 1.d4 and f62.c4 e63.nc3bb4. That ended up in a drawn rook ending, where the players did not both to check each other's ability for too long. On board 1, things started with a Scotch game where both players sent their kings to the queenside, despite it looking like the most dangerous place on the planet. However, very quickly the players took the game to the sawworks, trimming the wood off the board, and sending the game into an endgame that never veered away from the draw zone. Despite playing on for a very long time, primarily because one side was trying to equalize the outcome, the result from the only decisive game of the match. That leaves us with the Board 3 battle between GMs Bai Jinshi and Shamsuddin Vakadov, a game that decided the match. This result secured the round 1 victory for China, forcing the Uzbekis to play for match victory in round 2. On board, GM Nadabek Yakubov and the Chinese veteran, the 27-year-old GM Liu Shanglei, played yet another marathon game. But this time their game was much more dramatic, and therefore we chose it as our game of the day. For a while, it looked like the Board 2 encounter between Zhu Xianju and Sindarov would become the clincher for the Chinese team, when White had a decisive advantage in the endgame. But despite a massive time advantage, nearly 10 minutes versus less than 1 in favor of the Chinese player, White played too fast and blew it all away, once again opening the match up to the Uzbekis. On board 3, things were no less tumultuous than on board 1. Ahead of the round, team captain GM Ivan Sokolov had decided to play their reserve, IM Ordik Nigmatov, with the black pieces against Lidai. At first, this looked like a perfect decision as Nigmatov effortlessly equalized and even gained something that resembled the upper hand. However, in the rook ending, things went awry for the Uzbeki player, allowing Lidai to pick up the win in both the game, round, and match. To say that China's success in this tournament was unexpected is an understatement. Missing all of their top players, yet comfortably breezing through every stage of the tournament, including an overwhelming victory in the final, was breathtaking to watch and shows the rest of the world just how strong China is as a chess nation. Playing for bronze medals on the finals day is, of course, not what either of these teams had hoped for, but bronze is definitely better than nothing. India and Spain both had strong lineups, despite both missing several of their top players. Yet Spain came with something close to their strongest lineup. In round 1 of the match, the top players GMs Jamie Santos Latasa and Vidit Garajthi played an uneventful draw, where the Spanish player, with the black pieces, was never worse. Similarly, on board 3, the Spanish player, the legend GM Alexei Shirov, apparently effortlessly held a draw against SL Narayanan in a Grunfeld Indian. On board 3, GM Miguel Santos Ruiz sacrificed lost a pawn shortly after the opening, with the white pieces against GM Krishnan Sasikaran. In the early middle game, he soon won it back and then gradually gained a small but obvious advantage. After a string of subpar moves for both sides, Black made the final blunder, after which there was no coming back. In the game between GMs David Anton Gajaro and Nil Sarin, the Indian player gradually took over control of the game in the middle game, and eventually converted to score an important victory for India to secure the crucial 2-2 result. The second round saw very solid play from both teams, and none of the games were ever seriously in danger of winning that round, and thus what would have secured the bronze medals. This necessitated a blitz playoff, where Shirov returned to the lineup, taking the black pieces against Narayanan. That game, however, ended in a draw, and so did the board 4 encounter between Santos Ruiz and GM Abhijit Gupta, much like in their round 2 game. On the top board, Santos Latasa took command and squeezed a convincing win out of the game against Vidit. Against Nil, Anton Gajaro pressed and eventually got another win for Spain, securing the 3-1 victory for Spain. Luckily, with the decisive result of the blitz playoff, the teams avoided the final tiebreaker, which, I think, was chess boxing, something probably neither players nor organizers were up for. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more daily chess news.